Hello, 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 everyone in the stream. Today, joining me, we have Vaughn from last week.
Hey guys, what's up?
And we also have new guest, Loker, who's unfortunately couldn't make it last week, but is here this week.
How's it going, everybody?
For anyone who's here for our last one, fortunately, Astris is away. We have his predictions and his team rankings, but he's not going to be in here in person, so if you're looking forward to flaming Astris for his interesting predictions, then unfortunately you're going to have to talk to him after. But anyways, let's just get into the first part of our show. So the first thing we're going to do is do a quick review of what went down last week. So Vaughn, since you killed it in the matchups, why don't you walk us through quick what happened last week?
Oh, I'd be happy to. I'm so glad you're letting me. So, first things first, Sentinels Guardians of the Rift went pretty much exactly how I thought, which was if Sentinels was going to win, their bot lane was going to pop off. I did not get to watch all the series because it happened during my team series, but I'm pretty sure Collinator had like a 33 and 20 stat line or something over 2 games. So, difference bot was pretty big. Collinator looking real clutch, and I went back and watched game 1, and I liked what I saw from a couple of the players there, but I have to see Sentinels go up against stronger teams going forward before I know exactly how good they are. GT Not Cannon versus Guardians Prophecy Cup, yikes. Unlucky, I'll say, for GT Not Cannon. They went in expecting one team, and then they came out and they're up against Secretic, Kyoshi, and Knight of the Zed. So just difference in skill and based off like individual skill and based off the team players last split, where you have arguably number 1 ADC jungle and top laner. A pretty expected outcome. Vortex versus Crusaders, I will say, credit to you, Fug. You guys did much better than I thought. I thought you guys were gonna get rolled, but you did not. And granted, Vortex legit every week has some new technical issue, so shout out to Kurama for playing really well after getting ganked by ISP. So I respect that, but I was pleasantly surprised with Crusaders. So you guys have definitely improved since we last played. So I like that a lot, but I didn't expect Vortex to go down to you guys. Next was Leftover Lads versus Bad Boys, and I personally rated Leftover Lads as 10th because of their roster turnover and their mediocre performance and plans. And this was with their old roster, so they upgraded a couple of their units. Mainly their support has changed, and there was another position I can't recall yet. But Bad Boys is too strong of a team. I know I rated them 5th, but that's just because the top 5 feel all so good that honestly they could be the number 1 team by week 4, and nobody would expect, like, no, that wouldn't be a surprise. So that was the most clear-cut series I felt to determine which team would come out on top. And then the last one was the one I was most interested in, regardless of the fact that I played in it, which was Baby Shark versus these student athletes demonstrating brilliant organizational and inspirational success. And I predicted that my team would win 2-1, which we did. These were the arguably strongest teams coming out of play-in, so it was really interesting to see how they stacked up, especially because Baby Shark crushed Sad Boys in the play-ins. So that was a really monkey game, real monkey. If anyone watched that series, I apologize for what your eyes had to go through some of those games macro-wise, but that was definitely a really interesting series, at least me personally played, because it was such a back and forth. So that was kind of how week 1 ended up turning out. And I'm excited to see, especially going into next week, how some of the teams that performed well will fare against stronger competition. Like, so especially this next week when we get to talking about that, look out for Sentinels game. I really want to see what Sentinels game is like. And then also look out for Sad Boys as well. I would say those 2 teams, based on their matchups, are going to be really interesting going into week 2. But that's all I've got to say about the week 1 games if we want to move on from there.
All right, so for anyone who doesn't know, we do a like little prediction leaderboard here. So basically how it works is that we get 1 point for getting the correct winner, and you get 1 point for predicting the correct number of games. So basically Vaughn got every single thing right, so you got the max points, which is 10, so 2 points for each thing. And I only got 3, so I only predicted 2 out of 5 right. So where it says Loker, that's actually me, but as we'll get to in a second, Loker's kind of taking over my prediction duties. I'm giving him a nice solid start with 3 points off of week 1.
Yeah, we actually just fired Fug, 'cause he was so bad. That's really what happened.
Basically. Anyways, moving on to the current standings. Not overly interesting right now since it's only one series, so it's basically split in half. But the thing to watch is basically where that red line is where the actual like cutoff is for playoffs. So obviously there's still a bunch more weeks to play. I think 8 more weeks left. So teams aren't really left out from playoffs right now. But that is, you definitely don't want to be one of the teams below the line right now. So basically anything from Baby Sharks to GT Not Cannon is really looking to pick up a win this next week. Moving on to.
Also on a quick.
Sorry.
Can I quick shout out? Sorry that before we move on and we're talking about predictions and also doing other things, Canada has been hard at work on fantasy, and fantasy points have been updated based off of regular season results from week 1. So be sure that you're checking the Google Doc. If you have any questions, ask Canada about it, because going forward, fantasy points will be kept track.
Okay, from what I heard from him, you don't actually have to change your roster until after week 2, though, right? Or is your roster potentially too expensive right now, and you have to change it?
Yeah, so pretty much if you're over budget, you have to make sure it's kept under track. But I guess that'd be something if someone's confused, they could go ahead and ask him. But I'm the wrong person to ask.
All right.
So I just
Anyways,
wanted to make sure that
I'll ask Canada to clarify, and I'll post an announcement after the show regarding when people need to look at the fantasy points for updates or whatever. But anyways.
All right, sounds good.
Moving on to the week 2 predictions. Loker, since you're the newest member here and Astros isn't even here, I guess you can walk through your thought process on some of these matchups.
Okay, hopefully I'm not lagging. It says that I was a little bit before, but hopefully I'm not. Starting with what I think is the most interesting matchup of the week is Sentinels versus Vortex. From a personal level, I know a lot of the players on there, as well as that they are they like did super well, especially their AD. Colonnade like destroyed last week, as Vaughn said. And I guess if you call Vortex, Bad Boys, and not really Guardians of the Prophecy Cup, but Vortex and Bad Boys, the old guard of what is left of last season. Be interesting to see if Sentinels can beat Vortex, and that would really cement them as one of the top teams. But I did go with O2 because I got to stick with my boys. Like Fug said last week with the Boostaders pick, you got to stick with your boys. So I'm going to predict the 2-0 from Vortex.
I want to latch onto that real quick, actually, because you'll know more about these teams than I do. So you mentioned that you know a lot of players on the Sentinels roster, but you say you're still going to 2-0 them. How do you guys match up to them, and why do you think the 2-0 is going to happen? Because I put 2-0 just because I think you guys are the best team in the league currently, but I want to know a little bit more from someone who might understand the matchup a little bit better.
So, Sid that's their top. Sid is pretty good, but as long as Rex Salas is actually playing and doesn't monkey out and go to work, although Karaoke did a great job filling in for him, Rex Salas is the best top laner besides Kiyoshi in the league, so top lane kingdom. But other than that, pretty solid top lane matchup. I think they both match up pretty well against each other, but Rex Salas has been around forever. Jungle matchup, I've played against and with Norp. I almost actually got replaced by Norp on a team once, but I have confidence in myself. The only matchup that I think we could lose is mid, but our mid, Kurama, takes up pressure incredibly well, that he can be incredibly frustrating for other players to play against. So even if we've had teams try to test us before going into games by focusing our mid, cough cough Crusaders, and it doesn't always work out. And then our bot lane is I think our bot lane is the best bot lane in P Cup, so I don't think we'll have a problem there. Although Colonnade is their hard carry, 100%.
Yeah, and I remember in the interview too, something got said after your series against Boostaders. It went along the lines of, yeah, everyone feels like they can take advantage of Kurama, and now it's almost like we want that to happen because then we can just win while everyone focuses everything in mid lane. So okay, I'm glad that I got to hear that from you as well then.
Yeah, I definitely think that teams that do that tend to struggle more because it's what we plan for going into every game, and league strats, but you aren't going to win if you target mid.
Yeah, moving on to this next matchup, I'm going to do something a little interesting. Since Astos isn't here to defend his choice of Leftover Lads being 2-1, I'm going to give it to Loker, who gave them one game, and you have to try and convince Vaughn why you think Leftover Lads can either make it a close matchup or why they can win.
Oh, wow. All right. So I'm only giving Leftover Lads a game because I thought Boostaders were very, very shaky, actually. We were playing not great with a sub we've never played with before, but even then we still, Boostaders top lane as well as their jungle, I feel like are pretty weak. And I know that Fug and I forget their support's name, but Fug and the support played pretty well against our bot lane for being what I call the bot lane that's the best in P Cup. But I honestly feel like Crusaders isn't good enough that they can 2-0. I mean, Leftover Lads, I played with Babs before. He just got brought in as their mid laner now, and I've played with Babs before, and as long as he can keep his mental from booming, he's actually pretty good. So if he doesn't mental boom, I feel like they can at least get a game. I wouldn't even be surprised if they 2-1'd. But they did look awful after last week, and there's nothing I could do to convince you that they looked any better than they did.
Okay, so I'm actually not entirely sure about the 2-0. I just like putting things on there that nobody else does every once in a while because they did look terrible. That's true. Leftover Lads look they got crushed. Let's not beat around the bush. Bad Boys bent them over. But they did some roster swaps that we'll be talking about later that I could definitely see them taking a game because they've definitely upgraded their roster in terms of just pure mechanical skill. So I could see it going with a game, but just based off the improvement from Crusaders and the unexpected performance they had against you, especially with Nova Typhoon, honestly, like I thought Nova was much better than I thought. I mean, if teams don't ban his Zac, he's going to pick it and he's going to smurf on them. So if Zac gets through draft, I see them taking the series easily, but we'll see.
Yeah, his Zac
Anyway,
was really good when we played against them. I guess I don't know. I didn't think great. Then again, I'm a confident player, and I also told my team not to ban the Zac second game. So everyone who flamed, that was me. I didn't think it was that impactful, and even though the second game it almost just won them the game. He is good on Zac, but I think if you do take the Zac away, and if we ever play against you guys again, we're taking the Zac away. If we ever play against, if any team ever plays against Zac, it's basically a must ban, and we'll see if he's good enough on other things.
True. Okay, I like that. Fug, you want us to talk about the rest of them too? Because we got a couple more to go here.
Yeah, might as well highlight through. Quickly, there is a bit of discrepancy between you guys on sad boys versus bad boys, boys versus boys.
Yeah, Loker.
Let's
talk about that too. Talk about it.
Personally, looking at the matchup last week, I'll say bad boys probably look like the most convincing like early game team, right? Like all their wins were like 24 to 28 minutes, but they're also playing a team that's way easier than Baby Shark, who sad boys have to play, which is why I think this is actually a hard one to kind of vouch for. So I'd like to hear what you guys have to say.
Yeah, I'll take point on this one. So I don't care what Loker has to say. Holy moly, I feel betrayed. Okay, jokes aside. So Bad Boys played against arguably at the time that roster was the worst team in P Cup. Arguably. And Charlie actually just smurfed on all of them. Pretty sure he had 20 kills in game 2, which is bonkers. But I think that these teams match up really well against each other, and we'll see. Also, it's my team. I legitimately will not predict my team to win if I think we will lose, but I think we match up pretty well with Bad Boys. We have similar ideas for teams as well. As you know, we say top, you're on tank duty, suck it up. Junglers play hyper aggressive early game picks that go hard, like you have Ropey's Camille, you have CBT / IRL enjoyers picks like Lee Sin or Kha'Zix. Mid lane is different because we don't put all of our resources mid, which is super great because then our team can let our mid laner pick or force that's funny, tank duty pal, but we can force our mid laner onto picks like Galio. We can force our mid laner onto supportive picks. We can force our mid laner onto tanks, and that'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the series because the mid lane will be a huge factor in how the Bad Boys versus the Sad Boys goes, because if Charlie gets ahead 9 times out of 10, he's going to push that lead everywhere else on the map. And so I just think he's too good of a player for us not to lose at least one game because of that happening. And then obviously, elephant in the room that I haven't addressed bot lane, I'm a 6 support, so there's no way we lose bot lane. But in the off chance that I int, which has happened because support is like weird and you can't win a 1v1 because there's 2 people. And so a lot of times I let down my ADC in lane. So if that happens, the series is going to go poorly. But if I play as well as I can, I feel like bot lane is at least even, if not in our favor. We'll see. It's interesting because both the ADC, that's mine, and the support, Nahor, are about the same solo queue rank. And then T-Crank and I are both diamond, but T-Crank's way higher rank than me. So it's honestly, it'll be super interesting. I think this is the most contentious pick of the series and of the week. So I don't actually mind that you put us losing, but you can tell me what you think here because you got us losing, which is fine, but you can convince me why.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, sometimes you just like putting some things that no one else puts. So I had to put the 2-1, just to see if we get some discussion on here. I think that honestly, like you said, your team and Bad Boys, they match up super duper well. Like point for point, pretty much everybody. Like I don't think there's a strict advantage on either side for any of the roles. I mean, bot lane, like you said, it's kind of like opposites where plat 4, D5, D3, D5, or D3, P5. It's kind of reversed, but match up really well. And the only thing I have written down in my notes is that if Sad Boys can win this game, that'll be the broken old guard like I was talking about earlier. If Bad Boys lose, then one of the playing teams will finally have beaten one of the two, I'd say, old guard teams. So if they can do that, I will have massive run.
For a summary of this, can let Charlie Smells take over, or can...
Sorry, I think I lagged out. Can you repeat that sentence?
Okay, long story short, we're just summarizing what we're talking about. Bad Boys, they're looking for Charlie Smells to carry them and for bot lane to win. And then for Sad Boys, the student athletes demonstrating brilliant organizational inspirational success. If they can play around their hyper carry ADC, that's when they've looked their best in plans and also in week 1, because Devastation's averaging almost 1,000 DPM.
Yeah, he's crazy,
which is
dude.
Nuts. I carry him lane though, according to Fug, so all me. But seriously, he's been playing out of his mind. Good. So if Sad Boys can get out of lane and start team fighting around hyper carry ADCs, that's what they're going to look for. So let's quickly touch on the last two. I see we all have 2-0 for Baby Shark versus GT Not Canon.
I'll just say quickly, I think what both of you are going to say is until GT Not Canon or Guardians of the Rift kind of show like any signs of life, I don't think there's really a reason to give them a game. I think both those teams kind of are falling apart. We don't even know who 2 of the players on GT Not Canon are. And Guardians of the Rift, after swapping Yangsu ADC, looks way weaker than they did in the play-ins. So I think unless something changes, like they bring in some new players or they suddenly start playing way better, there's not really a reason for anyone to predict them to get a game, I don't think.
Yep, I'll agree with that.
Yeah, I agree as well.
All right, so moving on to the team power rankings. We do have, again, Astra's in here. This is updated from his last week, but he's not here to talk about it. So let's just discuss a few of them that you guys differ on, which is pretty much almost nothing. The one thing I'll say again is Vaughn, once again, you have leftover lads at the bottom where you're the only one that has them directly in last place. So what's your reasoning behind having them as your like bottom tier team here?
All right, so I mentioned earlier that roster swaps can make this team better. They can make the team better, but I haven't seen it happen yet. I need proof. I need to see games. I need to see results, and a lot of that is about how they'll do this week against Boosters. If they can take games or even show some real signs of life in the early game, then I'd be happy to move them up. But pretty much their team identity in plans in week 1 was, dear God, let's survive early game, get pounded, and hopefully when 40 minutes comes around, Astros can right-click his little heart out to their Nexus. That's what I've seen.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean the players individually are playing poorly in the early, playing well. Some perform not so well. I remember their top laner one series had some pretty good performances. Their jungler had one of their games played pretty well. I'm not meaning to say all of these players are bottom tier players. I'm saying the combination of the 5 that I've seen have looked extremely weak for one reason or another, and there's too much roster turnover for them to be any higher than 10th or 9th. So that's why I've got them all the way down there, Fug.
All right. Another one I'm going to ask quickly. It's a question for both of you. Do you see, usually at the beginning when you don't have much information on the teams, there's a lot of kind of play, right? So there'll be sections where like all these teams, I don't really care about where they're split around. So if you had to make sections, say like 3, so like top teams, middle teams, bottom teams, where would you cut those off?
I'll take point on this one. So for top tier teams, I think it's the top 5 probably. Either top 4 or top 5. I think Baby Shark is super super good. I think they played against a super good team as well. So I think I'd probably cut it off at 5, and then my second section would be Sentinels and Crusaders. And then that would be the next cutoff, and the bottom 3 teams would be my bottom cutoff. I think the bottom 3. When I was doing research for this for the weekly review, GT Not Canon doesn't even have like a roster right now, so I don't even 100% know what's even going on with them. So between them and Leftover Lads and Guardians of the Rift, who none of them have shown pretty much any life, they're definitely my bottom 3. But Sentinels and Crusaders are the tiny little middle of the pack that could go up and down depending on how they play.
That's a pretty succinct way of grouping it. I'd say the quote-unquote old guard coin that you've termed, I like that a lot. Vortex, Bad Boys, and I just threw Guardians of the Prophecy Cup because all those players played last season. So those 3 definitely. And then I think out of the play-in teams, the only strong contenders have been the student athletes demonstrating brilliant organizational, inspirational success, and then Baby Shark. And I feel like Baby Shark and Sad Boys could belong to either those top 3 echelon and make that a top 4 or 5, or they could be on the stronger side of that middle tier. I need more games to see. But other than that, I agree. I think Crusaders and Sentinels have set themselves apart for now from the other 3 play-in teams, and we're reluctant to put the bottom 3 play-in teams anywhere above where they are now until we either see some improvement in early game communication or potentially roster swaps. So I would agree. You've got top 5, middle 2, bottom 3.
Yeah.
All right. So since you guys pretty much agree on that, I'm just going to move on to the next thing. So the next section, guys, is player power rankings. Just to explain quickly for anyone who wasn't aware, so Loker wasn't here last week, so he doesn't have the dropped section or anything on his, which basically is players who were previously top 5 and have been moved out of the top 5. We've also added in Rising Stars, which are players who are not currently top 5, but look like they were making a break for it, basically, and could potentially make top 5 next week. As well, in the top right there, I have a graph which basically is like a percentage power. So basically, if you're 100%, then you're unanimously the number 1 player in your role. And then if you're 0%, then no one has put you top 5. So that's just a quick explanation of what everyone's looking at. And then Vaughn, if you want to quickly go through what's changed in your rankings from the last time, you can go ahead and do that.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just quickly touch on that because Loker hasn't rated on stream yet, so I'll just say my differences and let him take over. I bumped up. Let's start with top. Bumped up Provoli because I thought he was super super good for how many points he has after playing against him. Pretty good econ player. He's gold, and he made much more of an impact than I suspected. So I'm gonna give him the nod there for top 5 in the top lane. 3, I bumped up I'm So Clean, who also surprised me on Guardians of the Rift. Even though I'm pretty sure they got 2-0'd, I watched their games, and he did really well top lane. He solo killed a Rally versus Fior matchup a couple times. First game, he's on an Urgot and had a really nice CS lead at 10 or 15. I really liked what I saw in lane, and then better top wins, cough cough, but the rest of his team kind of fell apart, and that performance didn't translate to Adeline, but that's pretty tough. In terms of jungle changes I had, I felt like after this week's performances, I couldn't in good conscience not put Knight of the Zed back on top because Chandler, Ireland Joyer did not have the best series against Baby Shark and underperformed compared to his play-in performances, and Knight of the Zed just looked like premier MVP candidate material like he did last season. Overrate bumped up as well because he had insane jungle pressure, and I already had him in the top 5, but he gets up to number 3 after our series against each other, and he's still playing really well on champs that are really oppressive and hard to peel, like Jax and Olaf. Please stop picking those champs against us. Awful. Nova Typhoon, complete surprise. Did not expect this player at all because the jungle pool. But he played nuts in his series. Highest KDA right now in the entire league. I think it's like 39. I want to see him play more than Zach, or let me rephrase that. I don't want to rate him any higher than this because I need to see how he does on champs other than Zach, because Vortex didn't want to ban it, which is fine. They won anyway, so they knew something that I didn't, but I need to see him perform well. So I got my boy Loker, who I rated a little bit higher last week, and that's just because against against Nova's team, the Buceters, he still played fine and had an impact, but based on this list, I couldn't, in good conscience, put him above 5th. He had a okay Kane performance. Stat line was something like 0, 5, and 15. And then the next game, he had a middling score as well. He had an impact early and made some plays, but it didn't get him any higher than 5th. So all my jungle picks have adjusted in some way or another. And then I just don't have Ropey, not because Ropey had a poor game, but because all 5 of the players on this I felt were really instrumental in their team's success this week compared to the junglers I didn't put on there. And Ropey, while he played well, it was just such a Charlie Smells show that I didn't feel like he was in top 5 after this week's performances. Mid lane, a couple new faces. Pickaxe played his heart out. Good shit, Pickaxe. Really like what I saw in the cast, especially. That's the mid laner for Sentinels. I put my own mid laner at number 2. He absolutely played insane in the series with Baby Shark on picks like you don't normally see as much, like Syndra. So that was really refreshing to see different mid champs being picked. So I put him all the way at number 2 because I just felt like his play was so good that everyone was starting to talk about it, and I watched him play. I actually called him a Smurf myself at points. Then last I put D5 Police, who I don't even know if he's a mid laner or not. He's the top / mid laner for the Buceters. Let's call him a solo laner. But he played pretty well in his series, and I liked that. And I bumped down Hamlet because I really need him to perform on picks that aren't Orianna, and I also need to see him CS out of lane. Like laning phase ends, and he's at 160 CS, and he's like, "Yep, that's all I need." And then he goes the rest of the game, and he gets like a couple waves. That's it. ADC position, I moved Dev up to number 4 because highest DPM in the league, what a baller. And also I put Collier up there because he hard smurfed. And honestly, if he keeps up like that, I have to rate him even higher. But for now, I just don't know the player enough, and I need to see him do it against a team that I don't have at the bottom tier. And then I didn't change anything about support because I felt like my support ratings accurately reflected what came in the week. I think of myself as the best support, and until I significantly lose against another support on here, I probably won't change that just because I'm cocky and an asshole. And I I think every support on this list played well at some point during their series, but not so well enough that it affected where I thought they should be placed. And then the players rising stars at the bottom are players that I think will be top 5 or could have been top 5, but for different reasons. Especially look out for the new support on Sentinels. Nope, sorry, not Sentinels, Leftover Lads. And then also Fug, if he plays normal marksman well as opposed to like Brand and other mages, that would be pretty hype, and I could see him getting up there. But I've been talking for a while, Loker, so I need you to take over now that I explained why I did what I did.
Yeah, so I'll highlight the few things that we have different. Our top 5s are actually pretty similar. For top, the only difference is we have different orders. So I put Prevail as high as I did just because he's like so incredible for the amount of points that he takes up. I mean, tanks are tanks, top lane kingdom, but he did play really well as Cardinals. I feel the same way, but he is not as he's not the same level of points. If I remember correctly, I think he is a little more points, which is why I don't think he's as good for the value. And then I'm So Clean was just a surprise. He was like a solid player, and he was surprising. I actually think top isn't super good this season, as opposed to, which I'll get to next, jungle. I think the jungle position is really stacked. I think there's a lot of good players, and that spot where it says Rising Stars, I should have put Nova Typhoon, and I didn't. I just want to see him play more things than Zach, and if he does, then he could easily be a top 5. But the rest is very similar with a slight move around, and we both have Knight of Zed first. I put myself second because I gotta have confidence in myself. I know I didn't play great last week, but overall, I think I will play pretty well in the future. You have Overray, who's incredible. IRL Enjoyer, who I didn't actually watch the games that he played, but everyone I've talked to said that this guy is just 1v9 player and smurfer. So, I saw his KDAs. He's a beast. And Ropey, I have a lot of respect for Ropey. We played versus him quite a bit last season. And he's pretty good. For mid, I have exacted. No, I don't have exact the same list as you. I only have D5 Police not on there. We have Hide on Blake switched with yours. So I just think Hide on Blake is a lot like Kurama. He's a very, very good player for the amount of points he takes up, and he does his job every game. Although D5 Police, if he didn't get countered by the Vel'Koz pick game one, that Vigar, he could have hard carried with Vigar. So definitely a pretty close number 5. For AD, we have exactly the same list. Besides, I put Collinator up one because, like you said, he was literally smurfing on people. And Devastation's a really good player, but I actually think that it's more of the combination of you and him playing bot lane together than just him by himself. And until I see more from either of those players, they could be interchanged. And I have Rhino as my rising star just because I know he didn't play phenomenally last week, but I casted a few of his games in plans, and he's really, really good when him and Afro can get going. And if they can get going, then I think that they could be a super good bot lane. And for support, we have the same 5 people with the only difference of different positions. So I put Manwalrus first just because I think Manwalrus does. He's not the best laner, which a lot of people think that he might be overrated, but his team fights plays the grand scheme of the game is a lot better than I think people give him credit for. And I think that you and him are actually both super close to each other. I think that you guys play slightly different champ pools, play styles, whatever you want to call it. But I definitely think you two are high above the rest of the pack. I don't think that Nahor or Afro or Puff Nasty are anywhere even close to the top 2. Although Puff Nasty played pretty well. And Afro, I said if he can get the bot lane going with Rhino, they could be really good as well. And Nahor has been around for a while, and he's always been pretty consistent. But that is my spiel on the top 5.
I'll quickly chime in then on support, because I actually think Afro has been playing super well in terms of his pressure in lane, and then also his ability to play the team fights as well. And I pay more attention to that now.
Excluding game 3.
Yeah, well, excluding game 3 because I smurfed on Thresh. But besides that, like, that doesn't discount what he's been doing in other games. Everyone has okay performances or not okay performances. The point of the matter is, maybe I just picked a different champ and he won that lane, right? It was just, that's how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, I think that he is like super close to a pop-off player right now as far as supports go. Like
and I really like him too.
When we casted his game, he pressures on every CS. I mean, you guys played against him last week, right? Yeah, you guys did. Like you were saying, he pressures on every CS. He had a lot of pressure. I don't even remember what rank he is. I think he's not even like super highly ranked either. Yeah, he's D5, and he's really strong for D5. So he would be my player to watch to challenge that top 2 of you and Walrus, as well as Nahor if he can prove it to me as well.
Yeah, I think actually surprisingly support has become one of the deeper roles in this newer season as well, because I know support last season wasn't, and jungle has always been, but except for I'd say top and maybe mid, I feel like jungle, ADC, and support have some pretty legitimate depth to the role, as even there are players that are coming up from lower than 5th or through 1st and are challenging who belongs in the top 5 spot. So I'm excited going forward about that. But I think that's all I've got to say about the power rankings, Fug, if you want to take back over and talk about your own stuff here.
All right, so moving on to this next section, a new section I'm going to be adding every week, just some random fun stats that I wanted to look into that I'm going to share with people. And who doesn't know, I updated the whole stats sheet, so it's easier for me to pull some mass, like, interesting stuff now, especially champion-specific information. So I'm just going to be running into something I did. This is something I was interested in. I'm calling the meta slave rating. So basically what this rating is it's the average number of times your champion was picked. So basically, if you have a 1, that means you're the only person to play the champions that you played this week. So basically, no one else is playing the shit you played. You're just a nutty player, which happens to be the case a lot in mid lane. So almost every mid laner is pulling out at least one new champion by the looks of this. Whereas in the alternative, top and support are almost all just picking the same shit as everyone else, basically. And one thing I thought was interesting as well is I totaled up the teams who are playing the most meta versus the least meta, and actually GT Not Canon, the Leftover Lads, two of the teams are kind of considered like bottom tier right now, are both the least meta and most meta teams. So it doesn't look like there's a correlation between how good people are performing this way. Coming up next, I just have it put into a graph. So I have it color coded based on the teams. If someone wants to see this graph, I think it's included in the document itself if you want to look at it some more. But anyways, this is just basically the higher the number you are in a given role based on your team, basically the more of a metaslave you are. So as you can see, the lowest metaslave top laner would be the second highest mid laner. So basically, as you can see, there's way less champion diversity in specifically top and support right now. And mid and ADC seem to be by far the most diverse. I know I'm part of the the reason ADC is being diverse because I'm playing mages, but like right now there's a bunch of stuff like Kai'Sa, Lucian, Jhin, Brand, Swain, all getting played. So multiple mages, multiple different types of marksmen. So really good time to be an ADC right now if you want to pull out a bunch of different shit, and also a crazy good time to be a mid laner if you just want to pull out random champs, because it seems like everybody's just got some sort of nutty counter pick prepared, which is why we're seeing every mid laner and their mom having almost entirely unique picks for themselves. So yeah,
I actually want to comment on that too, just based on I think why the points are the way they are is because just generally in my experience playing teams, being the mid laner is way more fun, because when you're the top laner, your team, here's what the top laner says. Top laner's like, oh, you know what'd be sick this game that I could bust out? Riven. That would be so good, guys. And the team's like, haha, yeah, good one. Lock and Orin, pal. Suck it up. And then
that's like,
when you're in the
like Vortex, bro.
Yeah, exactly. So then when you're in the jungle, you're like, oh, guys, you know what'd be a sick pick right now in the jungle? You know what'd be really cool?
I can answer this one, bro.
Evelyn, Nidalee, Camille,
I'm gonna play some Kayn this game, bro.
Yeah, and then they're like, haha, that's really funny. You know what else is cool? Trundle is cool. Sejuani is cool.
Yes, Trundle just got 2 nerfs. It's time to whip him out.
So jungle you see not as much because it feels not as troll when your jungler picks a carry jungler. But in mid lane, what happens in mid is it's like everyone just kind of backs off and they're like, whoa, it's the mid laner of our team. What do you want to play into this? And everyone just like backs off and kind of sucks the mid off.
Kurama's like, yeah, I want to play Kayn mid, and the whole team's like, oh, hell yeah, brother.
Exactly. So I would like to point out that for mid, it's so 1v1 oriented. Better mid wins, by the way. It's so 1v1 oriented that a lot of times teams defer a counter pick to their mid laner because it's so important that the mid laner is on a comfort pick. A lot of times when you have a team composition, you force your top and your support to play specific things to make the team composition fit your carries, right? But for mid lane, it's all about, we just want you to win. Pick whatever you want. So it feels like a lot of the times teams defer to their mid and just let them pick whatever. And that's, I think, part of the reason why there's so many unique picks mid. And that's why I personally really like going to mid lane, because when you're support, and in the Ardent meta, which is back when I played support originally, they're like, hey, what do you want to pick here? Too bad, it's Lulu. There you go. Have fun. And you're like, damn, that sucks. But when you switch to a carry position like mid or ADC or even jungle, a lot of the times teams are like, hey, what do you want to play here? As opposed to like, hey, do you like Ornn? Hey, do you like Sion? Hey, do you like Janna? Those are going to be your picks. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit when we're on this and see if you guys felt similar, because a lot of times it feels like top and support are the NSFW bitch of the team. And a lot of times the carries are given preference. Yeah.
It's a little different on Vortex because our support has the less champions in their pool. So a lot of times it's our top who gets forced on, and our AD actually, because not all the teams are playing these creative AD picks like Fug was talking about, or the Brand or the Swain. So in that case, a lot of times you can just default to, hey, Kai'Sa's up, let's just grab that, and then let's just insert any tank, and then we go from there. But I definitely agree with your point that mid lane is definitely a lane of counters, and when you have the counter pick, you can definitely pick out, when you know what you're playing against, you can definitely pick some random stuff that your team can't say no to because you're the mid laner.
Exactly. And so I'm excited to see what more spicy stuff I can see in bot lane. Don't pick Heimer against me though, champs aids. But if people like Fug want to keep picking Brand, not Swain,
I think it's really interesting when, all memes aside, I think it's really interesting when people pick that. Yeah, as much as I hate Heimerdinger, and don't you ever play that against me. I think Heimerdinger, Swain, Brand are really interesting to see
Yes.
bot lane, and it can
Yes.
change, especially for like now that I have some experience casting too. It's a lot more fun to cast the games where it's not the same shit every game.
Yeah, because
So teams keep
even though marksmen are different, they have the same play style where it's just, oh, it's how are you right clicking them. But when they're bruisers and mages bot, it's like, oh hey, it's a completely different 50-50 here, and
Yeah.
it's so much more refreshing. So I agree with you on that one totally.
Also, just a quick point out on your like, how am I gonna right click here? iGlory called me a noob player and said Brand's easy to play, and that's why I'm playing it. When he plays Tristana, nigga, I'll point and click. That's all I'm saying.
Whoa!
Whoa!
Whoa! Wait a minute! Wait a minute! Rivsky! Wait, clip that. Hello? You're banned. You're banned. Brand is easy to play though. Hello? Brand is easy to play. You just hit your W and then stun them and then they die. I play Brand all the time, so I can agree that champ's easy.
Sorry,
oh my god,
slip.
banned on his
We gotta
own
get the
show.
ban in here, yeah.
Alright.
Ban
yeah.
from Fug's fun stats.
Yeah, I
Never to
know.
be
Not
seen
so fun
again.
anymore. Bugs Fun jail from now on.
Yeah, fuck. You can trash talk iGlory when you have the highest DPM in the league for a season like he did.
Hey, I have third highest right now. I'm pretty sure for ADC.
Or when you beat him
You're
in a
playing
game.
Brand, bro. Your
Yeah,
champ
you're
was
playing
built
Brand.
to
Come on.
Wait, every
Come
ADC is
on.
built to do damage. That's
Yeah, but
literally all
you-
they do.
Yeah,
tell
but
that to
that's
the
like,
tank players, bro.
Yeah, exactly. That's like when I picked Xerath and I bragged about having the most damage in the game. It's like, yeah, I sat 6 screens away and I virgined out. So come on, pal. Press R to team fight and you do like 10k. Anyway, I respect that though. Keep picking Brand. I'm a big fan of it, fuck. Don't let the
doing it.
haters keep you down.
All right. Anyways, I think
Yeah, but that's all I got.
all we got for today. So, anyways, if anyone wants to see some more memes or see if I actually get banned next week, tune in. Hopefully, Astros will be able to come next week so he can actually discuss his nutty picks because he seemed to always disagree with whatever everyone else is doing. Anyways, I'm Fug. This is Loker and Vaughn. Anyways,